They laughed when she applied. The application hit their inbox like a joke no one had the courage to say out loud. A blind girl on a robotics team? Some rolled their eyes, some smiled politely, but almost everyone assumed the same thing. She'd never last. She couldn't see the parts, couldn't read the diagrams, couldn't write code, couldn't lead. They didn't know her name. They didn't know her story. And they certainly didn't know what was coming, because what Nia Carter lacked in sight, she made up for in vision. She didn't need to see the robot to build it. She needed to feel it, hear it, understand it from the inside out. While they were watching screens, she was listening to everything. And when she showed up at the state finals, white cane in one hand, blueprints in her head, and the most advanced bot on the floor, the judges didn't know what to say, but her robot did. It moved, it solved, it won. And when they handed her the trophy, no one was laughing anymore. So how did a blind teenager go from being underestimated to engineering victory? And what did she whisper to her robot after the final round that left even her competitors in tears? Before Nia Carter was known for robots, she was known for star maps taped to her ceiling. She'd lie in bed for hours as a kid, laser pointer in hand, whispering the names of constellations like they were old friends. That ceiling held her dreams. NASA, inventing satellites, building things that moved without needing roads. But at age 9, her world began to blur. Headaches, missed steps. She started bumping into corners she'd once danced through with ease. By 10, she couldn't read her own homework without a magnifying glass. By 13, the stars were gone. The diagnosis hit hard, a progressive retinal condition. No cure, no timeline, only loss. At first, Nia refused help. She didn't want a cane, didn't want Braille, didn't want anyone to know. She memorized class schedules, counted steps between desks, faked her way through the cafeteria line. But the truth catches up. One afternoon, she missed the last step of the stairwell at school, and everything spilled. Her tray, her secret, her pride. She lay there, not hurt physically, but cracked in the one place no x-ray could show. That night, her father sat beside her in the dark. He said nothing at first, then softly told her the story of a tree in their backyard, one that had grown sideways after a storm twisted its trunk. But it still reaches for the light, he said, just differently. It didn't fix everything, but it planted something. After that, her parents got trained in accessible tech. Her mom labeled everything in tactile stickers. Her dad 3D printed a tactile model of their house. They never once told her to give up engineering. They just helped her find another way in. And then came Jordan, a classmate, quiet. One of the few who didn't treat Nia like she was fragile. He started walking her to class, not out of pity, but because they liked arguing about who would win in a robot battle, drones or ground bots. Jordan learned Braille to impress her, failed at it, but tried anyway. More importantly, he asked her real questions, like how she pictured code, or whether she could still dream in images. Nia told him she didn't see shapes anymore, but felt them. That's when he handed her a small gear one day and said, "Then this is a feeling worth learning." It was the first part of a robot they'd eventually build together, a seed of metal and faith. And when the school's robotics league was announced, Jordan turned to her and said, "You should run the team, not because you're blind, but because you already see how it works." It wasn't supposed to reach her. The Robotics League invitation had been sent to all science students, except Nia. Her name wasn't on the original list, but her screen reader caught it anyway. A forwarded email, an accidental CC. 3 words stood out like a flare in the dark: open to all. Nia froze. She reread the requirements with trembling fingers. Build, code, present, compete. No one said anything about being able to see. No rules against blind students. Just no one expected one to apply. She sat with it for days, not because she was unsure, but because she knew what would come after she said yes. The looks, the questions, the comments that sound polite but feel like chains. Her mom called it a heavy lift. Her teacher suggested a support role, maybe helping with the presentation. Even her best friend paused and said, "But how would you even do it?" And that was the moment. That exact sentence, "How would you even do it?" Nia smiled, because she already had the answer. She didn't see the code. She heard it, line by line. She didn't visualize the chassis. She mapped it in her hands. She didn't need to guess what was possible. She just needed to try. She stayed up that night learning the team's platform. Audio tutorials, tactile graphics, voice commands. She practiced by assembling a robot blindfolded, just to prove to herself it wasn't a fluke. And then she applied. Not to prove anyone wrong, but to prove something else. That engineering didn't belong to just one kind of mind. And innovation doesn't require eyesight, only insight. From day one, the room shifted when Nia entered. She didn't command attention. She earned it. She walked in with her whack cane tapping the floor, her shoulders straight, and a confidence that didn't come from being loud, but from being ready. The team didn't know what to do with her at first. They handed her small jobs, checking battery levels, recording meeting notes, but she gently pushed back. She asked better questions than anyone else. What's the torque ratio on the motor drive? Why are we wasting space on a third wheel when we need a pivot? She didn't guess, she knew. She asked for a 3D printed version of the bot's blueprint so she could learn it with her hands. She traced every shape, memorized every connection. Her fingers became her eyes. Her memory became the map. When the ultrasonic sensor didn't work in testing, Nia was the one who caught the mistake. Not by reading logs, but by listening to the pulse of the code through a screen reader. Her mentor watched in disbelief as she recalibrated the bot using only audio cues and vibration feedback. And she started building something even more powerful than a machine. Trust. The team began asking for her input first. They started waiting until she spoke, not because she demanded it, but because her solutions worked. Nia created a navigation system based on echolocation principles, inspired by how she walked to school each day. She gave the robot its name, Echo. Because it hears the world before it sees it, she said, just like me. By the time the regional round arrived, Nia wasn't the sidekick, she was the architect. And Echo didn't just perform, it led. It maneuvered faster, solved puzzles smarter, and used less code than any bot on the field. But a real challenge hadn't arrived yet, because just before the state finals, everything would fall apart. 3 days before the state championship, Nia walked into the robotics lab and froze. Something was wrong. The hum of the backup charger, gone. The scent of solder, stronger than usual. A silence that didn't feel empty, it felt violated. Her fingers reached out to the table where Echo usually sat, but found only debris. The robot was in pieces, disconnected, gutted, wires had been yanked, The frame cracked. The ultrasonic sensor smashed. The others stared. No one said anything, but Nia could feel it in the way they shifted in their chairs. This wasn't an accident. Later that day, someone found a note, unsigned, crumpled near the trash. Maybe now you'll quit. But they didn't know Nia. They didn't know that she'd already lost her sight and rebuilt her life from scratch. That night, she didn't cry. She didn't scream. She rebuilt. With her fingers, with her ears, with her memory. She worked in silence while the others stood behind her, ashamed, unsure, until one by one, they joined her. By morning, Echo stood again. Not flawless, but functional. And somehow, stronger. At the competition, the judges raised eyebrows when they saw her team roll in with tape still wrapped around the bot's core. They whispered about last-minute fixes, but when Echo took the field, it moved like it had never been broken. The obstacle course was brutal. Precision turns, unpredictable terrain, optical illusion traps, all designed to test vision. But Echo didn't need vision, it needed input. It needed calibration. It needed Nia, and when it reached the final checkpoint, with seconds left, it performed a pivot maneuver no other bot had even attempted. The buzzer sounded, and the entire arena rose to their feet. Nia stood motionless, listening. Then she heard it, the voice of the announcer. First place, Team Echo. She didn't flinch. She just smiled and whispered, "We did it." But the victory wasn't the trophy. It was the message. You tried to break her, and she built something better from the wreckage. The day after Nia won the championship, the story spread, quietly at first. Then, like wildfire, a video clip surfaced on social media, grainy, shaky, but powerful. It showed Echo gliding across the final stretch, Nia's hand resting calmly on the table, lips moving in silent command. The caption read, "Blind girl builds win-in robot." It got 1 million views in a day. Comments flooded in, "I teach robotics." This changed how I think about sensory input. My daughter is visually impaired. She just watched this 10 times. She didn't just compete, she redefined the rules. Tech blogs picked it up. STEM programs reposted it. A college professor tweeted, "The future of engineering just got more inclusive." Her name is Nia Carter. At school, her classmates didn't just nod anymore. They stood when she entered, not for show, but because something had shifted. For the first time, people weren't seeing her as the blind girl. They were seeing her as what she'd always been, a builder, a leader, a force. That night, there were no cameras, no cheers, just Nia and Echo and silence. She sat cross-legged on her bedroom floor, the trophy tucked on her shelf like an afterthought. In her lap, the robot, not running, not perfect, just there. She let her hands move over its body, tracing the wires, the curves, the patched repairs. Every imperfection told a story, a near disaster, a pivot, a breakthrough. She pressed her cheek gently against its frame and whispered, "You're more than metal. You're proof that I was never the broken one." Outside, the wind brushed past her window. Inside, her fingers rested over the final sensor, the one she'd installed blindfolded just to prove she could. She didn't smile, she breathed. The kind of breath you take when you finally know, not just that you're capable, but that you belong. Nia didn't ask for a legacy, but it happened anyway. Weeks after the championship, an email arrived from a middle school across the country. "Because of you, we started our first accessible coding club." A girl in Argentina uploaded a video fingers brushing across 3D printed robot parts. Caption, "I'm blind. I thought STEM wasn't for me. Now I build in Braille." At a tech conference, a panelist mentioned the Carter method, a new way to teach robotics using audio tactile mapping. A startup reached out, not to feature her, but to hire her. They wanted her help designing software for non-visual users. And in her own school hallway, you could see it. A boy who used to walk hunched over now carried his white cane with pride. A teacher who once overlooked her now kept a Braille keyboard on her desk. Even the word engineer started to sound different because Nia didn't just build a robot, she built a doorway. And more kids were walking through it, head held high, cane tapping proudly, hearts wide open. Let's hear what others said about Nia. Those who doubted her learned from her and were changed by her. Her robotics coach said, "Day 1, I worried she wouldn't keep up. By day 10, the team was trying to keep up with her." Her best friend Jordan said, "She taught me that engineering isn't just wires and code. It's courage. It's listening when no one else is." Her physics teacher said, "I used to think inclusion meant letting someone try. Now I know it means trusting they can lead." Her mom said she never needed to see the stars to reach them. She just needed us to stop standing in her way. A competitor from another school said, "I didn't lose to a blind girl. I lost to a better engineer." And from a handwritten letter read softly, "Dear Nia, I'm 12. I'm blind too. Before I saw you, I thought I'd never belong on a team. Now I'm building one. Thank you." She didn't just win a trophy, she gave others permission to begin. Years later, in a quiet university lab, Nia Carter stands at a table again, not as a student, not as a guest, but as the lead designer on a research team. The project? A robotics platform for blind and low vision youth, designed entirely by people who build with their ears, their fingers, and their insight. The interns don't ask her how she'll do it. They ask her what she sees, and Nia smiles, because these days they don't call her the blind girl who built a robot. They call her Professor Carter. She still keeps Echo, her first robot, on a shelf in her office. The wheels are scratched, the paint chipped, but it sits there like a trophy and a friend. Sometimes when the lab gets too quiet, she'll reach for it, touch the dented chassis, remember the girl who built it not to prove she was capable, but to remind herself she already was. And in the corner of that shelf next to Echo is an old photo of the night sky. She never did get to see it clearly, but she built something brighter, a blueprint, for every kid who thought the dark meant the end, when really it was just the start of their design. When they handed Nia the mic, the room went still. She didn't rush. She traced the edge of the trophy with her hand first, like she was memorizing it, not for herself, but for every kid who never thought they'd be seen holding one. Then she spoke, not loud, but clear. "You thought I couldn't lead because I couldn't see, but I saw things no one else on this floor did. I saw patterns, I heard problems, I felt solutions." She paused. "I'm not here to prove blindness isn't hard. It is, but that doesn't mean brilliance can't come from it." The crowd didn't cheer, they just stood, silent, some in tears, because it wasn't about inspiration. It was about recognition. For years, Nia had been taught to shrink her ambition, to trade in her tools for a tune, to stay in the corner of the lab while others did the building. But now she was the blueprint. A girl who didn't ask for accommodations. She created new methods, She showed them how sound could guide a machine, how memory could rival vision, how leadership could come wrapped in quiet. Her story wasn't about overcoming blindness, it was about engineering access, redesigning space so no one had to sit on the sidelines ever again. If Nia's story made you feel something, don't just click away. Share this with someone who's ever been told they don't belong in the room. Someone who's been underestimated because they move differently, see differently, think differently. Leave a comment for the future inventors, the quiet builders, the kids who hear no and build anyway. And if you believe the world needs more stories like this, stories that rewire what we think is possible, subscribe to Able in every way. Because real engineering doesn't just change machines, it changes minds.